So this is what I walked in on this morning. There was no one here all night. It must have slipped off this table during the night or something. But this is just a good example of the random problems that present themselves when you run a bar. Nobody asked for this. I mean, I'm busy enough as it is, says the guy talking to himself. That's not why we're here today. We got 4 of our t-shirts back in stock. My job today is to photograph them, edit them, turn them into a social media post, and I'm going to show you how I do it. Let's get into it. I'm going to do today's shoot as a flat lay. In other words, I'm going to take this shot from above looking down at the t-shirts. So the first thing I'm going to do is set my background, and I have this huge reflector that's going to work out perfectly for me. If you don't have something like this, you can use a white sheet. That's going to work also. I'm also using 2 GVM lights, not terribly expensive lights, but they work just fine. And I've both of these set up facing 45 degrees down at our t-shirts on both sides. But I'm also using natural light. I have my garage door open. That's going to let in a lot of sunlight, which is going to help this as well. This is by no means a top shelf fashion shoot. This is just something for social media, and it's going to work just fine. Next up, here are a couple of techniques I learned for prepping t-shirts for a photo shoot. Fold the underside of the t-shirt so you get just one clean edge. That way it looks a lot neater and a lot less messy. You can also do this along both sides, but for these t-shirts I think the cut looks pretty good as it is, so I don't need to do it on these ones. Another technique I like to use is creating texture on these t-shirts. So I'll use my fingertips and just kind of crunch them into the fabric to create a nice texture. Now I'm ready to take my pictures, and my camera settings are going to be pretty basic. I want to keep my ISO as low as it can possibly go, so that's 100 on the Canon EOS R. Generally speaking, I want to keep my f-stop around 4 or 5. I don't want a shallow field of depth for something like this. I want to capture as much detail as I possibly can, so 4 or 5 is good. Anywhere lower than that will also work. Okay, so now that we have our pictures of the t-shirts, we're going to load them into Photoshop and clean them up, turn them into PNG files so we can place them on a pure white background, or any kind of background if we change our mind later on. This background, this white backdrop that we use here today, that was just a placeholder because it makes it easier to mask out the t-shirt in Photoshop. Let me explain. So I'm not going to make too many edits in Photoshop. There's just a couple of things I want to clean up. For example, I want to remove the tags on these t-shirts because they're a little bit of an eyesore. So I'm going to go ahead and use content aware fill and then stamp around the rest. This tutorial is not going to be very in-depth about what I'm doing in Photoshop. It's more about just the choices I'm making in Photoshop. But if you guys would like to see a more full, in-depth video, let me know in the comments below. That's something I can do. So once I've removed the tags and we zoom out, now it's time to remove the white background. And now the same steps apply for the other t-shirts. Then we're going to end up with these 4 PNG t-shirts, and now we can put those on whatever background we choose. So again, in Photoshop, I made this perfect black square, and in the center, I made a gray gradient, and then we put our t-shirt over that, and it gives it the kind of illusion that there's depth there, which is kind of cool. And then we just use that for all of our t-shirts, and we save them to wherever you upload to Instagram or Facebook, and boom, Bob's your uncle, Mary's your aunt. So there you go. Hopefully this was a quick video about how I made these images for our social media. If you guys would like to see a more in-depth version about the editing, especially in like Photoshop, like I mentioned earlier, let me know in the comments below. That might be something interesting. Till then, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.